Peace be upon you. Presidents are usually followed by media sycophants who credit them with every achievement in the country. When crops grow or roads are built, the credit goes to His Majesty the President. When buildings are constructed or projects are developed, the credit also goes to His Majesty. At every accomplishment, he must hold a ribbon-cutting ceremony to inaugurate the project. All this, even if His Majesty did not contribute, even a little bit, to his country's development, and even when his and his entourage's corruption has obstructed progress in the country and killed many of its projects. However, because some good happened to take place during His Majesty's reign, the credit must go to him according to his media promoters. Nobody has the right to ask questions such as, had His Majesty not been there, wouldn't the country and its people have made much better progress? Weren't such achievements a natural result of the passage of time and the accumulation of human experiences? The media entourage here rely on the logical fallacy of, with this, therefore, because of this, or correlation proves causation, i.e., the claim that the concurrence of two events indicates that one is a cause for the other. This fallacy, in its most absurd form, is comical. It's like someone saying, I notice that every time I drink a glass of milk, the sun rises. Hence, I conclude that drinking milk causes the sun to rise. That's why we emphasize that correlation does not imply causation. What does all this have to do with the myth of evolution? In exactly the same way the myth disciples emphasize the importance of their myth, credit it for various discoveries, and absurdly shove its name into everything, even though it's not only useless, but also harmful to scientific research, as we'll see. Let's review 6 prominent achievements attributed to the myth of evolution, as reported by prominent scientific websites: the National Academy of Sciences in the USA, Scientific American, and the Nobel Prize website. The 6 examples are the SARS virus vaccines, mules and wheat, bacterial resistance to antibiotics, the price of fish, fettuccine, the 2018 Nobel Prize in Chemistry, on the National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine website, you'll find a book titled Science, Evolution, and Creationism, which asserts that the theory of evolution has become a reality, and that creation is not science. It then explains the importance of evolution theory in science. The book mentions 2 achievements of the theory, and its summarized version briefly added a 3rd achievement. Let's review these achievements and see whether they can be attributed to His Majesty the President. Under the title, Evolution in Medicine, Combating New Infectious Diseases, the book tells the story of the SARS virus which appeared in China, spread to other countries, and killed hundreds. The book then states, using a new technology known as DNA microarray, and within 24 hours the researchers identified the virus as a previously unknown member of a particular family of viruses. The same result was confirmed by other researchers using different techniques. Immediately, work began on a blood test to identify people with the disease, for quarantine purposes, treatments for the disease, and vaccines to prevent infection with the virus. Thus far, it sounds like a beautiful and wonderful scientific achievement. Here, His Majesty the Myth must be invited for a photo with the researchers. The book continues. An understanding of evolution was essential for the identification of the SARS virus. The genetic material in the virus was similar to that of other viruses because it had evolved from the same ancestor virus. We may ask here, what does His Majesty have to do with the discovery? The SARS virus is similar to other viruses which enabled the researchers to produce modified treatments and vaccines based on this similarity. What does any of this have to do with your beliefs about what happened in the distant past? Whether you believe that these organisms developed from each other randomly and coincidentally, as the myth claims, that there is a creator who created some from others with knowledge and intention, or that the creator created each separately. You are now researching organisms that are similar, and you can take advantage of this similarity for the benefit of mankind. What does the reason for similarity have to do with it? Remember that in the previous episodes, we completely debunked the claim, by Allah's grace, that similarity means common ancestry. Yet the book treats this false claim as a necessary truth. The genetic material in the virus was similar to that of other viruses because it had evolved from the same ancestor virus. We showed how comical such claims were in the episode. Your tale that you know little about. Perhaps His Majesty's supporters believe that the concept of vaccines should also be credited to His Majesty. History is not on their side. The first known vaccine, the smallpox vaccine, was introduced by Edward Jenner in 1796, 60 years before Darwin's myth. The book then proceeds to His Majesty's second achievement, evolution in agriculture, the domestication of wheat. Domestication means cultivation and improvement, as opposed to relying on what grows in the wild. The book explains how farmers, for a long time, have been working on improving the traits of wheat and other crops, and on mating closely related species of animals. It then explains how researchers determine the genes responsible for the desired properties. Lovely, but what does this have to do with His Majesty? According to the book, through all this, people were using a process of evolutionary change. And these advances rely on an understanding of evolution to analyze the relationships among plants and to search for the traits that can be used to improve crops. Wait a minute. Our ancestors, long before Darwin was born, used to graft pear branches onto apple trees and mate similar species of animals for improved offspring. Were they doing so based on Darwinian convictions about random changes and blind selection? Didn't the first mule come from the mating of a horse and donkey before Darwin's myth was born? Also, what does His Majesty have to do with the identification of the genes responsible for desired traits in wheat and crops? What specific service did His Majesty provide in this achievement? How are our convictions about the origin of genes relevant in how we utilize them for the benefit of mankind? No relevance whatsoever. Nonetheless, His Majesty must pose next to this achievement as well. The third achievement is bacterial resistance to antibiotics. Many types of bacteria have undergone genetic changes that increased their resistance to antibiotics and made them more lethal to humans. True. But what does this have to do with His Majesty? They said, knowing how evolution works to increase bacterial resistance is critical in controlling the spread of infectious diseases. Evolution? How is it relevant here? How is it relevant to bacterial resistance? What do random mutations and blind selection have to do with the amazing mechanisms in bacteria? So amazing that you started attributing bacteria with intelligence and giving it divine attributes such as knowledge and will, as explained in the episode, Worshippers of Microbes. Let's, for example, ask how bacteria was able to resist one of the first known antibiotics, penicillin, by using various mechanisms, all very complex and precise. One such mechanism is the production of the beta-lactamase enzyme, which consists of hundreds of amino acids arranged in a very precise order, with no room for randomness. In the late stages of this enzyme's production, these amino acids are modified at very specific positions to form a three-dimensional structure, allowing the enzyme to perform the specific function of targeting the weakest point in the antibiotic and deactivating it. How are randomness and chance relevant here? This paper, for example, explores one type of beta-lactamase which consists of 263 amino acids. Have you observed in this bacterial cell random failed attempts to make chains shorter or longer than 263, 50, 100, 200, or 300 through random arrangements of amino acids before the bacteria accidentally produced this enzyme? If it were up to randomness, as you claim, then the land, sea, Earth, and the sky would be full of failed attempts before the bacteria succeeds in producing this enzyme. Was it random evolution that led the bacteria to produce this specific enzyme repeatedly, without going through countless random failed attempts? Furthermore, when researchers produce a new antibiotic that resists this enzyme, the bacteria produces another type of beta-lactamase. They then produce a third antibiotic, and the bacteria produces a third beta-lactamase and a fourth and a fifth, etc. This gives the impression that we are dealing with an organism with gigantic study and research centers, not a tiny microorganism, millions of which can fit on a pinhead. All this is in only one form of bacterial resistance. What does this have to do with randomness or chance? By the way, several leading experts on antibiotics objected to His Majesty's intrusion into every discovery in this field. Dr. Ernst Chain, one of the three scientists who received the Nobel Prize for the discovery of penicillin. The other two are Alexander Fleming and Howard Florey. Described the myth of random mutations as a hypothesis based on no evidence and irreconcilable with the facts. He expressed his amazement that it was swallowed so uncritically and readily. Another example is Dr. Selman Waxman, another Nobel Prize winner, who discovered streptomycin, the first effective antibiotic for treating tuberculosis. He described the application of the Darwinian struggle for existence to antibiotics as a figment of the imagination. Philip Skell, known as the father of carbene chemistry, who also developed antibiotics, wrote in 2005 in The Scientist an article titled, "Why Do We Invoke Darwin?" in which he stated, "Certainly, my own research with antibiotics during World War II received no guidance from insights provided by Darwinian evolution. Nor did Alexander Fleming's discovery of bacterial inhibition by penicillin." He also said, "I recently asked more than 70 eminent researchers if they would have done their work differently, if they had thought Darwin's theory was wrong. The responses were all the same. No." He went on to say that he examined the outstanding biodiscoveries of the past century, only to find that Darwin's theory had provided no discernible guidance, but was brought in, after the breakthroughs, as an interesting narrative gloss. Exactly like when His Majesty is brought in to attend the ribbon-cutting ceremony. Skell also said, "From my conversations with leading researchers, it had become clear that modern experimental biology gains its strength from the availability of new instruments and methodologies, not from an immersion in historical biology." Professor Skell was brave in his criticism of Darwinism. When the National Academy of Sciences published the book we discussed, Skell, who was a member of the Academy, responded with an article in the Politics and the Life Sciences journal. Notice the title. He said, "The public should view with profound alarm this unnecessary and misguided reintroduction of speculative, historical, philosophical, and religious ideas into the realms of experimental science coming from various sources, including this current publication of the National Academy of Sciences." Remember, dear viewers, how we clarified the relationship between religion and science in the episode, "Has Materialism Hijacked Science?" Obviously, after his bold criticism, Philip Skell was not spared from the attacks of the myth's henchmen who called him a cowardly creationist and a liar or ignorant. This was a brief review of His Majesty's accomplishments in the field of bacterial resistance, his third achievement, according to the book by the great National Academies of Sciences. It reminds us of the saying, "The mountain went into labor and gave birth to a tiny mouse." Let's go to another website, Scientific American, which aims to educate Americans on scientific matters. In it, you'll find this article titled, "Why Everyone Should Learn the Theory of Evolution." Pray tell us why. The article says, "Evolution should be taught as a practical tool for understanding drug resistance and the price of fish." And continues, "Most important, Darwin's legacy has a direct bearing on how society makes public policy, and even, at times, on how we choose to run our lives. Overfishing of mature adults selects for smaller fish, and higher prices at the supermarket." Wow, what a great achievement. What a great achievement for His Majesty. If we keep fishing large fish, they will diminish, and small fish will multiply. We would not have known this fact if we hadn't believed in evolution, and if we had not called this process selection. This fact is unknown to the Eskimos and the inhabitants of the African jungles who have never heard of His Majesty. Of course, dear viewers, selective breeding of plants and animals is recorded in historical accounts more than 800 years before the birth of the myth. For example, in the book by the Muslim scholar al-Biruni about India. He reports on farmers selecting the best grains and twigs and excluding the weakest. The Scientific American article moves on to the second achievement of His Majesty on bacterial resistance to antibiotics, which we've already responded to. The article then moves to the third and last achievement. Let's listen to this, dear viewers. Scientific American tells you, "Many modern diseases, obesity, diabetes, and autoimmune disorders come about in part because of the mismatch between our genes and an environment that changes more quickly than human genomes can evolve. Understanding this disparity may help convince a patient to make a change in diet to better conform to the demands of a genetic heritage that leaves us unable to accommodate excess, refined carbohydrates and saturated fats from a steady intake of linguine alfredo and the like." Linguine alfredo, for those who don't know, is similar to fettuccine, and fettuccine for those who don't know, is similar to linguine Alfredo. Anyway, according to the Scientific American article, if you tell an obese diabetic patient, "Do you know what caused your health issue? Alfredo and donuts," or, if you are an Arab, kunafa and mansaf, which are called environmental changes. Random mutations in your genetic material, even though they were able to produce you from animal ancestors, are unfortunately not fast enough to create effective mechanisms for you to deal with these environmental changes. The solution is therefore to adjust your diet to what suits your genetic material. This will convince your patients to adjust their diet, and the problems of obesity and diabetes will be resolved. His Majesty will then come along to take a photo with them as they enjoy health and well-being and live happily ever after. Do you now know why everyone should learn the theory of evolution? Why everyone should learn the theory of evolution? Frankly, dear viewers, if I wanted to write a comedic play starring the myth proponents, I couldn't have come up with anything more comical than this. Lastly, the sixth achievement accredited to His Majesty is the 2018 Nobel Prize in Chemistry awarded to 3 researchers. For what? Let's explain what Frances Arnold did. She wanted to improve the properties of natural enzymes, which are proteins produced by living cells to accelerate specific biochemical reactions. Arnold's most famous research is on the subdolizin enzyme produced by a certain type of bacteria. Her goal was to change the enzyme structure to make it active at higher temperatures and in organic solvents, and thus suitable for cleaning and many other processes. Great. So, what did Arnold do? She couldn't produce an enhanced enzyme from its primary elements. Therefore, she extracted, from subticillin-producing bacteria, the genetic material that gets translated to this enzyme and exposed it to specific factors, with specific amounts and durations to produce mutations, i.e. changes in the elements of genetic material. She then inserted the mutated genetic material into bacterial cells that have built-in mechanisms for reading genetic material, thus producing new enzymes from the modified genetic material. After comparing the efficiency of the resulting enzymes in performing the predefined function, Arnold selected the enzymes that were active in organic solvents and at high temperatures, excluded those that were not, and discarded those damaged by the changes as they were no longer functional. Arnold then made more improvements to the successful enzymes and so on. A beautiful achievement in genetic engineering. The other 2 researchers applied the same main principles, inducing changes to improve protein efficiency, antibodies in this case, and selecting them according to specific criteria to improve binding to their targets. Do you realize, dear viewers, what these researchers essentially did in these experiments? They essentially summoned His Majesty the Myth and said, "Why are you sad?" He said, "People make fun of me. They do not believe that all the living organisms in the universe are due to me. Well, then prove it to them with practical evidence. I need time. How much time? Around several thousand million years. This long? No problem. We'll help you. His Majesty, aren't you? Random mutations, blind selection, without purpose, requiring billions of years? We will help you overcome your weaknesses. We will not leave you to randomness. We will not let you wait for a random mutation in the genetic material from UV radiation, then another mutation, years later, from a chemical substance. No, we will expose specific regions of the genetic material to intensified simultaneous mutations, up to 1,000,000 times the frequency expected in nature. We will not leave you to blind selection. No, we'll take you by the hand, act as your eyes. We won't let the useless products of random mutations accumulate in cells. Instead, we ourselves will get rid of these useless proteins. We won't leave you purposeless. We'll define a purpose and design experiments to achieve it. In other words, we've completely emptied your Majesty from all your content and solved all your problems. Your mutations are no longer random, your selection no longer blind, your purpose no longer unknown, and thus you'll no longer need billions of years. What took billions of years, according to your Majesty, can be achieved in a few weeks, a year at most. As Professor Sarah Lindsay, member of the 2018 Nobel Committee for Chemistry, said during the award ceremony,
because what they have done is to really speed up the evolution. Because nature has had billions of years, but now you want the process to be possible in maybe a few weeks or a year or something in the laboratory.
Show us your might, your majesty. Can you please produce billions of species, like those existing now, to silence those who make fun of you? His Majesty tried, but failed. Well, can you create a single fly for us? His Majesty tried, but failed. Well, can you transform one kind of organism into another? His Majesty tried, but failed. Can you create one cell for us? His Majesty tried, but failed. Can you at least produce one enzyme? Note that a single living cell contains millions of enzymes. His Majesty tried, but failed. Shame on you, your Majesty. Okay, can we, as researchers, try on your behalf, your Majesty? They tried and failed. That's why when Professor Sarah was asked, why didn't researchers make the enzyme themselves instead of modifying the enzymes in nature? She said,
Still not possible with the knowledge-based methods today to design an enzyme from scratch.
She is therefore confirming that until now, we don't know how to produce an enzyme from scratch, i.e., from its primary elements. All the researchers were able to do was change the properties of proteins that exist in nature. The subdolizin enzyme remained a subdolizin enzyme, but with different properties. Antibodies remained antibodies, but with different properties. This is all they were able to achieve in a period that simulates billions of years of evolution, according to Professor Sarah Lenz. Therefore, the correct title for the 2018 Nobel Prize for Chemistry should be Award for Exposing the Miserable Failure of the Theory of Evolution and Closing the Books on This Long-Running Absurdity, especially given the differences between what they did and evolution. As explained by Professor Sarah,
in nature, it's a rather random process because the mutations happen by chance, maybe due to UV radiation or something. Whereas in the laboratory, it was a combination of knowledge base. So you have to have some idea of which positions to vary, but then you add a randomness on top of that.
she also explained the difference with regards to purpose.
I would say nature has no goal, whereas in the directed evolution, the scientist defines the goal. I want to break this bond or make this bond.
These were her answers to the questions raised by journalists. Yet, all the efforts of the researchers resulted only in a change in protein properties, not a transformation from one kind to another, nor a creation from nothing. Just imagine if matters had been left completely to His Majesty. Hence, the award should be, at least in part, for proving His Majesty's incapacity. Let us see how the Nobel Prize was announced. The Nobel Prize website gave it the title, "They Harnessed the Power of Evolution," and used this image for the award. This is how some Arabic websites, such as the Al Jazeera Associated Maidan website, announced the news. Nobel in Chemistry 2018. The theory of evolution treats humans. Just like this, experiments that prove His Majesty's incapacity turn into examples of his achievements. This is how they turn thoroughly designed experiments, conscious choices, and predefined goals into achievements of randomness, chance, and purposeless, unintentional blind selection. No problem, as long as His Majesty can be squeezed into the picture. A cheap and comical intrusion of His Majesty, the myth that repulsed many leading scientists and evoked their criticism. Some are renowned U.S. professors such as Professor Matti Laisola, Professor Douglas Axe, and Professor Ann Gauger. You can find excerpts from their statements in this report by our brothers on the Muslim Researchers website. Did His Majesty make any contribution to this research then? Did the researchers need him for anything? The researcher Arnold, one of the Nobel Prize winners, was asked by The Guardian, "Your Nobel Prize was awarded to you for the directed evolution of enzymes. What's that?" She replied, "It is basically breeding similar to mating cats of different breeds, or dogs to bring out desired traits, but at the level of molecules." Thus, Arnold was inspired by her observations of interspecies breeding, and her research had nothing to do with what had happened in the distant past, or His Majesty. This is how they shove the myth down people's throats. This is how they convince them that they wouldn't exist if it were not for His Majesty the myth. Like this funny example from a lecture titled, "Medicine Without Evolution is like Engineering Without Physics." The lecturer repeats logical fallacies and regurgitates old lies about vestigial organs and flaws in design, which we've already refuted in the episodes. Caught you. Wakey wakey. And the cocktail. He suggests that if there was knowledge behind creation, women would have had a zipper they could open during childbirth instead of having to suffer as they do.
What do women really want? A zipper. I mean, this whole idea of forcing a baby's head through a narrow rim of bone, it's crazy.
Do you see the impressive science produced by His Majesty's supporters? Can the myth disciples come up with a single useful scientific research that is based on the conviction that creatures came by randomness and chance? Did His Majesty ever embrace a researcher and tell him, "Son, this world you see is the result of randomness and chance, without any intent or will"? Would His Majesty's words inspire this researcher and motivate him to explore and discover benefits for mankind? The correct method isn't to list the names of scientists claimed to believe in evolution. Rather, the question here is, does the myth deserve credit for any useful discovery? In the episode, Has Materialism Hijacked Science?, we showed how for any scientist to produce useful knowledge he needs to set aside the absurdity of materialism and the claims of randomness and chance in his scientific practices and methods. Had they truly believed in random phenomena, vestigial organs, and junk genetic material, they would have stopped their research, as there would be no need for discovery, as we explained in the episode, The Atheist's God of the Gaps. However, and as usual, the myth disciples fool people and ridicule their intellect using the fallacy. In His Majesty's reign, yes, the myth has no benefit whatsoever. On the contrary, the myth of evolution has harmed scientific research and wasted much money, time, and efforts in absurd attempts to answer questions like, when did humans and chimps diverge from their common origin? What type of random mutations caused humans to evolve from prokaryotes? Go and browse the research databases such as PubMed using keywords such as human, chimpanzee, evolution, and genome, and you'll find thousands of studies. Then, bring me a single benefit from research that is based upon the illusion of the myth. When you look into the evidence for the myth, you only find lies and logical fallacies as detailed in previous episodes. Nonetheless, you still find His Majesty hanging around the streets of science, searching for any new discovery to exploit and squeeze himself in for a photo op with this discovery which he had nothing to do with. You'll then realize how pathetic and miserable he is. Yet, you still hear those among us who say,
the massive, prolonged, and ongoing influence of the theory in various and very different fields of science, like anatomy, histology, physiology, neuroscience, and even pharmacology and pharmaceutics, as well as biology and natural history, which is its original area of specialty, psychology, evolutionary psychology in particular, sociology, history, moral philosophy, political philosophy, and many other different fields of science and art.
True, its influence appears in all these sciences, but what sort of influence?
It is such an important theory that people in this age cannot deal with these sciences and arts with seriousness, wide understanding, and flexibility without understanding this theory.
I think you realize, dear viewers, after watching this episode, that the reality of its influence, they happened during the reign of His Majesty the myth, and not that you need the myth to understand them, as he claims. Yes, the myth has indeed left its mark in many areas, but it's a damaging and destructive mark, as we detailed in the episode, Darwin's Bullet Against Humanity, as it made some people believe that they were more evolved than others, which incited them to annihilate and enslave other races less evolved than them and put them on display in zoos like animals. And when it led to the justification of crime by claiming that crime was the result of man reverting to the animalistic traits of his ancestors from which he evolved, it also justified the ideologization of science, as we demonstrated in the episode, Science and Homosexuality. The myth did not provide any benefit in return except for one benefit. When it instilled doubts in some people's hearts, it prompted those who appreciate knowledge to tear the myth out of their hearts and sift real knowledge from falsehood. Thus, when we uproot the myth, we uproot alongside it the dirt that wouldn't have surfaced otherwise, which increases our certainty in Allah's signs, both written and observed, and purifies knowledge, in confirmation of Allah's words, which is translated as, "But Allah abrogates Satan's interjections, and then reaffirms his revelations. Allah is all-knowing, all-wise. Then Allah says, what can be translated as, so that those who are given knowledge may realize that this is the truth from your Lord, and thus believe in it, and so their hearts would submit humbly to it. Allah will surely guide those who believe to a straight path. Thus, dear viewers, we've just concluded the 14th fallacy in the myth propaganda list, the fallacy of, with this, therefore because of this, achieved in His Majesty's reign. The frequently asked question remains, if the myth is this useless, why do all these scientists seemingly believe in it? Why do they agree to give it credit for their achievements? Is it true that 99% of scientists believe in the theory of evolution? We will answer these questions next episode, Allah willing. So stay tuned.